Today's daf is daf Zion, and we are up to actually Tezvav on the base towards the bottom of the page. We're going through every single case in the Mishnah where it tells you the requirement of how many dayanim we need. So now we are talking about cases where we need the full entire Sanhedrin of 71. So the Gemara says about 8 lines from the bottom of the page that Tezvav on the base. Ain't done in chulu. We do not judge a shevet, except if you have a Sanhedrin. So how you shevet the chotev b'mai? What's the story here? This shevet that committed a sin, and you need a Sanhedrin of 71. What was their sin? Ilema shevet shechilos Shabbos. What they did was entire shevet was mechal Shabbos. Aimer, let us say, why should you need a different Sanhedrin? Ordinarily, you need 23 judges for skila. So why should this be any different? Aimer. Why don't we say the polygraph mona beyechidin Rubin le'ina b'dazar? Where do you find any aveda? There's a difference if an individual does it or if a multitude of people do it. Is by avodah. An individual gets punished skila, and if it's entire city, we call that an ir adachas. That every person there gets sayif, man, women, and child, and we destroy the entire city. That's where we find a difference if an individual or a multitude. Where do you find by any other mitzvah there should be a difference whether an individual did it or a whole group of people did it? Ella, so must be talking about a shevet shehudach, an entire shevet was found that they were worshipped idols. That you need a bezin of 71. Says the Gemara. So what are you telling me now? The memra you want to tell me the bedina the rabbim daninel entire shevet worships avodah zarah. We will treat them like an like an ir nedachas, and they need 71 judges. Now we have a problem with that because command this would seem it doesn't follow either view. Like Rabbi Yeshua, like Rabbi Yenis, and neither does it follow the view of Rabbi Yeshua, nor does it follow the view of Rabbi Yeshua. Time we live in the Braisa. At kama oisit inadachas. Till when do we say that it has the story, the din of the near nadachas? Is according to Rabbi Yeshua's beyud v'ad kaf. If you have a minimum of 10 people to be considered a tzibur, and until 100 people. Less than 10 people is not called a city, and more than 100 people is also not any city anymore. It's called a tzibur. And nowhere do you find by a tzibur that they only get the punishment of cherev, of a sword. They revert back to skila. Dibur Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yeshua says, no, the minimum is kuf 100 people. But till the majority of the shevet, between 100 and majority of the shevet worship idols, they'll all get cheret. But if it's more than majority of the shevet, the entire shevet, they will get skill again. So what is our Mishnah saying over here? That the entire shevet, and you tell me he's talking about avodah zarah, you need a bezin of 71, as if it's an iradachas. But Rabbi Yenis comment el rubai. Even Rabbi Yenis says up to majority of the shevet, abel kuliloi. But never do you find anyone saying that the entire shevet is treated like inadachas. But the master said, you know what we're talking about over here? Benasi shevet shechota askinan. If the leader of the shevet sinned, if the leader of a shevet sins, then what happens to them is, if they commit any avera that deserves Mrs. Bezin, we're not talking about monetary, but something severe, they need a bezin of 71. And how do we know that? We'll soon see the Bada says further down the page, that everything that Yisra was advising Moshe Rabbeinu, that every difficult, great thing should be brought to you. And so we teach. What do you mean hadover hagadol? It means devar rav shel gadol. Matters pertain to a leader like a nasi. You need a bezin of 71. So then hainami gadolu. A nasi is considered gadol. Ula comes along and says, I'll give you another pshat in the Mishnah when it says the entire shevet. What are we talking about? You said it means the nasi of the shevet. I'll say it's talking about the boyin aliske nachlas. If two different shvatim were having a dispute about boundaries with this shevet's chelik ends, where this one begins, then we'll say we need a bezin of 71. Why? Just like when we a proportion to Yisrael. You had 71 dayanim. So too, he needs 71. So Gemara is asking a simple question. If we're going to compare it to the way you initially distributed the chalakim, there was more than just the Sanhedrin. You had a goydel, you had a basket where you put them in. So why don't we do the same thing over here? If so, if Matchila Sekalpi, there was a box where you put, the names in Uri Bitumim and the Chol Yisrael, all the Yidden. So you had the Goy will do the same here. Whenever there's a dispute, if you can say Kitchilasov, then go all the way. Why just having a Sanhedrin of 71? Afghan over here too. Kalpi Urvatum all the Eden should be involved as well. It's clear like the first answer we gave the Mishnah is talking about a Nasi of a tribe. But Ravina said, no, I can give you another shot. The entire tribe was found guilty of idol worship. Are you telling me? Then they all revert back to the law of the Yechidim where they get skilla, or the Kokasha law bedin the Rabbim Danilei, that we judge them according to a Rabbim. We just said everybody holds Rabbi Yenos and Rabbi Yesha hold that the entire Sheva was found guilty. Each individual gets skilla. Go back to a normal din of individual, but rather yes. I forgot the Katrin the actual punishment would mean out would be like a Yochid skilla of the Beidina, the Rabbim Danilei. But that we don't take away that we need a bezin of 71. How do I know that? The Ilam of Chabar Yesha didn't come in the name of Yesha said later on. In the name of Yesha, says a Ishahu, you should take out this person who was found guilty of Avodah Zarah. You should take out that person. Oh yes, Isha here, that woman. So bring them to your Sanhedrin, the local Sanhedrin, which is a bezin of 23. Each individuals, you bring out to the local Sanhedrin. You don't bring the entire city. I'm here too. Is Isha, so too over here, a man and a woman. He's when it comes to Avodah Zarah. You don't bring it to the local Sanhedrin of 23. You bring them to the Sanhedrin of 21. Says further, then it says Lo yes Novi Sheker. A Novi Sheker is found guilty of false reveres, the divinity of Bezin of 71. Says the Gemara, how do you know that? How do you know that it's any Bezin of 71? Says the Gemara, we learn out it says the Novi that deliberately Yazid ledaber to say things in my name that I never told them. So it says the word Yazid, and it says the same word Hazod by Zakim Mamre. Somebody a rebel who goes against a tie in the Sanhedrin, and it says that the person who bemazed did not listen to the Sanhedrin, then what you put the person to death. So we make it say Shava Hazod, just like Zakim Mamre, in order to confer upon this person the title of Zakim Mamre, he has to rebel against the tie bezin of 71, and the word Hazod is there. The same thing applies there. Says the Gemara, Hazod Kiksiva Biktolo Diksiva. By Zakim Mamre, the word Hazod is not regarding the sin that he did. The word Hazod is regarding the Pasuk talks about he did amazing therefore that he gets this punishment. He has to rebel against a bezin of 71, but he's found guilty by a bezin of 23. So how do you know that when it comes to a Novi Sheker, he's found guilty by a bezin of 71? Element is Lakish. You know how we know? Goma, we learn that in the very same passage he talks about the Novi. It says deliberately, it says ledaber davar, to say words that I never told him, and we learn that davar, the word davar, mahamra osa. We were learning the word davar from when the rebel, what he said. He had to say it against. He had to say it against the entire Sanhedrin. So therefore, because he said it against the entire Sanhedrin, it's the same thing over here. Mahamra osa. So then he wants a question. Okay, so we have one part of Zakim Mamre we say is 71. He has to rebel against 71. We learn by Dover over there. So let me ask you a question. The Lahada is Zakim. Why don't we then say why? Because by Zakim Mamre it says there was Sisa Pihadover Ashigilo. So why don't we say now that we've established that Zakim Mamre is similar to Novi Sheker, and by Novi, let's learn the reverse now. A Novi Sheker gets 71 judges, need 71 judges to pronounce this person Novi Sheker. Say the same thing by Zakim Mamre. Not only he rebelled against the bezin 71, but he has to be found guilty by bezin 71. Believe me, Hazada min Novi Sheker. And so the Gemara, Dover Gomer, the Gzeda Shava of Dover, we learned Hazoda Legame, but the Gzeda Shava of Hazoda to go reverse and say, now let's learn Zakim Mamre from Novi Sheker. We can't make up Gzeda Shava. We can learn Kalachemer, we have a Machlekes regarding Hekesh, but we cannot make up Rashi Teis and Sukkah, but we cannot make up Gzeda Shavas. Either you heard it me or you didn't, as we had a few days ago, Rav and Abayah. Says the Gemara, A Kohen Gadol needs to be judged when he does an Aveda to do with capital punishment. He needs a bezin of 71 instead of 23. How do you know that? This is weird about said across. Every great large thing that you brought to you, the Gadol, we mean the Vodim, not large things, but matters to pertain to a Gadol. Macefiel asks a question. It says the Braisa double gadol, double kosher. Double gadol actually means difficult, complex questions. Complex. Maybe taka means anything that pertains to a leader, like a nasi. Okay, when he says it's a dover hakosher, Moshe, it says any complex thing bring to Moshe. So we know gadol means complex as well. Hadavar kosher, amud. So what's about Abba saying that Dvar Rav Shal Gadol? Maybe it means no, it means complex things. Dvarim Kashim, Dvarim Gdolim. So no, you're right. This Braisa says so, but there's another Braisa who contradicts it. It means matters that pertain to a Nasi. Maybe means only difficult things. There's another passage where it says the difficult things. You don't need two psukim saying the same thing. And we change from kosher to gadol. Must be gadol means matters that pertain to a leader. Why do we one is merely instructions. One is advising Moshe. One is Moshe actually implements it. So that's why you have two psukim. If so, that's the whole reason. Let it say, oh God, kosher. Use the same word in both psukim, because one was advice and one was implementation. My God will my kosher. Why alter the word? Shma not tarti. Then you have two different things. One is complex things you bring to the Sanhedrin of 20 or 71, and one is dvar rav shel God, matters that pertain to a leader. What about shoydish of kohen gadol? What about an axe that killed a person, and we have to bring it to a bezin of 23? To bring it to 23, a bezin of 71. Says the Gemara. What's the question? Because the pasuk says that gam bail of yumas we had before, and we learn out from there. Misses bail kach misses the way we kill Baila, which is a bezin of 23, so too the Shard Haniskel is a bezin of 23. So the question is, do we take it a step further? Just like when the Kohen Gadol, to do things that he did, if he didn't obey that, he requires capital punishment, he needs 71. So to the Shard, in the case of a Kohen Gadol, we'll get 71. Or do we say, no, we look at, in argument, in general, we don't look at the specific person. In general, Misa of a person is 23 judges. Same thing over here. Which one is it? So Gemara says, compared to its own owners, which is what Kohen Gadol therefore should have 71. Or do we say that no, it's compared to general owners? General owners are only 23. He says, the fact that you're asking only regarding the cow of a Kohen Gadol seems like, what about a cow, not a Kohen Gadol, ordinary person, cow damaged somebody or any other monetary issue? Definitely, you don't need a bezin of 71. You just have an ordinary bezin of 3. That's what it sounds like. When it comes to money matters, definitely it's only a bezin of 3. Says the yes, right. Pshita. Isn't that obvious? Monetary matters need 3. It's only matters that have a 23 judges. So we say by Kohen Gadol it's 71. Or by Nasi. No, so Abaye says, I would have thought it's not so simple. Because of kol hadover hagadol. The word is kol. It says any large thing, and you just said dover hagadol means anything which pertains to a leader. I would have thought that any matters that pertain to a leader, even matters that are monetary, which normally only require 3 judges, maybe by Kohen Gadol you need 71. Called what is hagadol kabashla? It's not so. Hey, might see, and says, how do you know? It says you don't go to war unless you go ahead and you get to the Mlochim, the Sanhedrin, and all that. You get permission for that. So how do you know? I'm going to go across the posse. You should stand before Elazar Kohen. Yeshua should stand before Elazar Kohen, and he'll ask in the Mishpat Urim, and it says whatever they say, you follow. You go out, you come back, and then it says who he. Who's he? Obviously, that's Yeshua, the Melech. Then there's the whole Bnei Yisrael, the entire nation. Also, there's an Itay with him. Zem Meshuach Muhammad. There was a Kohen who was appointed to give the Eden a prep talk and so on, and he represented Klal Yisrael. And then there's the whole Eden, the entire community. There's Sanhedrin. So we see clear from here that the Sanhedrin are involved. Thinking about the Sanhedrin to come, Rachman Shavim made the trader saying the Sanhedrin have issues. They should go talk to him, and not an ordinary person. Issues. What's the night when we go to war? You have to ask them. Kino, how you told the Mailam, the Mitzvah David, had his hop above his bed. We had the same Gemara Baruch in the beginning. Came midnight. Ruach Tzefainis Menasheves by the northern wind blow. The wind keeps on changing direction. And in four different directions, every 6 hours, the wind changes direction. And according to Rashi, he says that in the morning, the wind is east till noontime. And then it goes south. And then it goes west, and then it goes north. North is chatzais. That's what Rashi says. Very interesting. Most Rishonim agree with Rashi. Most Rishonim hold that it went mizrach in the morning, then it went ma'ariv west, and then it went south, and then it went north. In fact, there are two different minhagim in how you wave the lulav on sukkahs, because it's also waved in all directions, and the minhagim are based on the machlekes right here of Rashi and the other Rishonim. Rashi's version is that that first thing is Mizrach, where you're supposed to face Mizrach when you do the Nunuyim. So the first thing is you do is Mizrach, and then Rashi says the next one is Durham. So basically you go the 4 points of the compass, the four different directions. So the Mizrach, and then Durham, and then Ma'ariv, and then Saf. That's Rashi, and that's Minig Ashkenaz. You follow Shittas Rashi. But many Rishonim hold, in fact most Rishonim hold, that it goes as follows. This is the way Chabad does as well. First you do Mizrach in front of you, and then you do Ma'ariv, which is behind you, and then you go to the right Durham, and then you go to the left, which is Saf, to go up and down. So that's the basis of this machlek, is the 4 points of the directions. Anyway, so this hop was facing the direction of the northerly wind, and then it comes midnight, suddenly it's like an alarm clock. The hop would stop playing because the wind suddenly changed direction in northerly way. It started blowing, and the hop blew on its own. The Yad HaYadav, he would wake up midnight, but he would learn Torah until the early morning. With the Shachar, every morning, the Chacham would come into him, and one morning they came into their local issues. Your nation requires a livelihood. Amalei said, why don't you guys feed each other as the rich and help the poor? Is not sufficient. Different pshatim, but Rashi says, between a small amount, like Rashi says over here, is not sufficient to satisfy a line. Or the rich don't have enough money to satisfy everybody. The ein haboid mismali mechuyose, the pit. According to Rashi pshat and many other pshatim, but Rashi says a pit. If you take the sand out, you cannot put it back in to replace it. No, the rich don't have enough to give. He said, in that case, go out there. They have all of these Palestinians and Philistines and others who are, constantly nibbling away and make it very difficult for us. Go out there, extend your hand over and them, and go wage a war with them and evict them. Yeah. So what is the process to make a war? They go ahead and consult Achitayfel. What exactly the Chatayfel was Dormel's consultant? What exactly do they consult Achitayfel with? According to Rashi Brachas, it's strategy. Give us a strategy. But according to Rashi the Chuvas, he says actually asked Achitayfel, should we go to war or not? Even though we're going to ask the Chuvas the same question. So the Rashba says they wanted to see first with Das Tachna how a person would think what the right thing to do is, and then they would see the Chuvas would agree or not. Then the Nimlochim Sanhedrin, they will consult Sanhedrin. And why would they consult Sanhedrin? Rashi here says to get permission, which is a big problem because then there are many people who oppose Israel going to war. Remember, Rashi in the Mishnah says that only Melchemes Mitzvah, which is Amalek, which is Yeshua's war. Everything else is like a Melchemes and Rishus, and it's questionable whether Eden allowed to go to war. And that those who argue that Eden should never go to war, even in the current situation of Islam. However, and they say because you have to have a Sanhedrin. Where's the Sanhedrin? Who did you ask? But Rashi in Brachas adds, when the Melachim the Sanhedrin, Rashi says, why you consult Sanhedrin? So the Sanhedrin should daven on your behalf. In other words, not to seek permission, but to get them involved, which is very different. Then it's only a Rishus. Okay. And the Rishonim they ask them to me, what exactly is asking to me? So some Rishonim say, should we go to war or not, is what the Rambam says. Others say, asking to me, is also regarding not Rishus to go, but whether they're going to win or they're not going to win, but not a question of Rishus because they don't need Urim. Otherwise, how can you ever go to war? He says, what's the plus? How do we know that? It says, after Achitayfel, now this is the Gisa that we have in the Gemara, is Rashi's Gisa, which the Pasuk actually has a different Gisa. The Pasuk says, ben Benoy, not Benoy ben Yoyada. But anyway, Rashi says Benoy ben Yoyada and the Evyosar, and then was Evyosar, and so the version in our Gemara, there's no such pasuk. Is it possible that Rashi had such a pasuk in his Tanakh? Then following Benoy ben Yoda, we'll see soon, who's going to be the head of the Sanhedrin. Then we have Evyosar, and then which is a Kohen Gadol, and then we have the Sar Tzom Melech Yoav. Then they went to Melech Yoav, the Sar, and they go to war. And this is the order. Chetayvel there, he advised him. Chen Weimer, Atzas Chetayvel Sheyatz. Ubenoy ben Yoda, who was Benoy ben Yoda? Zu Sanhedrin. He was the Sanhedrin. And according to Tai's another Shai's version, what our pasuk is, Yoda ben Benoy, is Yoda ben Benoy, and both father and son were members of the Sanhedrin. And Yos is the Urim V'Tumim. It says Benoy ben Yoda, that Benoy ben Yoda al hakresi al haplesi. When we read the most many Shai learns, al it means he came before. First you went to the Sanhedrin before you went to the kresi and placey, which is the Urim V'Tumim. Other Rishonim learn actually that Kresi and Placey is referring to Sanhedrin themselves because they were, as you will say, what Kresi and Placey means. Kresi and Placey. Kresi, why they call Kresi? For Kresi, the name is very concise. It could either be talking about the Urim Tumim, only one or two, very cryptic, very short words, or get about Sanhedrin. Placey shemufloyin ma'aseyin. The Maisim are wondrous. And that's why the Sefer Kresi Placey as well on Shulchan Aruch. The Achakach afterwards, Sar Hatzov, the Melech, afterwards, they go to the armies, they go fight. So we see this is the process. And Sanhedrin were part of it. 71. How do you know about the Pasuk? How do you know about the just wake up? Ura Kavodi, Ura Hanevel, the Chinod, Ida Shach. He said, I used to wake up in the morning. He said that I will wake up. And he would talk to the navel and the chinner, the different musical instruments, to the harp, and eat a shachar. I will wake up in the morning. I woke up before the morning. Not like all other kings that wake up 9 o'clock. The Eiman Sifan here, nor do you add to a city or to the base of Mikdash without a Sanhedrin of 71 because it's special Kedusha. How do you know that? I'm going to see me back here on my cross. And the Pasuk, that the way I described you and I show you Tablis HaMishkan, the format of the Mishkan and the format of all the Kalim, that's how you should do it. So we darshan the data saboy in the future as well. This is how you should do it. Now, who did it then? Moshe Rabbeinu, and he represented a Bezin of 71. So too, in the future, you have to have a Bezin of 71. Masi Rav has a question. What about if it comes to Kalim? In the Pasuk says Kalim says the Tasha, right? That means the very same process that the protocol that Moshe Rabbeinu had in place in his time, that's how it should be forever. But we know that it says in the Baraisa, Kol HaKelim she'asa Moshe Moshe Rabbeinu did it by anointing with oil. The moment you use it once, it becomes sacred. Why? Nemo, why do we say V'chein tasu l'doidos? Why don't we say it says the same possible so you said that's how it should be in the future. And the fact that it is in the future proves that the doesn't mean forever, it means only the times of Moshe. And therefore we have no proof that you want to extend the base of English, you need a Bezin 71. Says the Gemara, Shiny Hossam, this is different when it comes to Kalim, the Amakro, it says in the Pasuk that by Yimshach Oisai, it says he anointed the Kalim, and he concludes by Yimshachem, he anointed, by Yekadesh Oisam, and he sanctified those. Why do you have to add the word those? So we dash in Oisam Mashiach. Here's an exception, even though I said B'chein Tasu, but now when it comes to Kalim, because only Oisam, only Moshe Rabbeinu was limited to Mashiach, but in the future we change the apparatus. The modus operandi. So the one of who said you change it completely? Maybe Oisam bin Mashiach, maybe in Moshe Rabbeinu's time it's sufficient just to anoint with oil. Well, the day is we have a choice. Either Mashiach, either Avodah. You can either do anointing or both. Why completely? If the Chen Tas means to future generations, then you have an Oisam. Try to reconcile the two. Okay, the Chen Tas, you can continue anointing, or if you want, Oisam tells you there's another way of doing it, and that is through Avodah. I'm going to pop on across and another posse where it says you take the clay shodis asher yisharsu bum that you were used by kodesh. No, this is clearly here. What makes it kodesh? Yisharsu. Because on the Mashiach, the Torah clearly says only when you actually implement it. So what do you Isa for? So we answer, Elav Oisam, had it not been for the word Oisam. So now that you have the word Yisharsa Bomba Kodesh, which means that the Kalim now are only with you need to do avoid it before it becomes sacred. So why need the word Oisam to limit? How come we should Oisam Lamali? Elav Oisam had not been from Oisam. I mean, I would have thought Lidoides b'Meshicha u'Ba'avoid. I would have thought that now is only b'Meshicha with oil, but the future you can do both. So it says the Chayin Tas, so this is how you do the future. Therefore, that is why it says the word oisam, oisam Mashiach, v'loila doy Mashiach. Only there Mashiach and nothing else. In the future, no Mashiach at all, only avodah. How do you, if you want to set up a bezin of 23, you need a bezin 71 to overlook it. And all how do you know? Because Ashram and Moshe, by Moshe Ukis and Moshe, bezin want to set up all the bodies and he himself is equal to 71. Well, Moshe Makoshe he represents 71. Turn up by Milan. Menayin Shama Mina Shaitin Lisrael. Said the pasuk Shaitin the Shaitin the beginning of Shaitin Shaitin the Shaitin. You should give judges and police in all your cities. Hashem will give you Lishvatecha to your tribes. V'shaftu esa'am mishpatzetek, and they should judge. The Gemara says breaks it down. Menayin Shama Mina Shaitin Lisrael. You need judges by Yidin Tamalayim Shaitin Titin. You have to give Shaitin. Shaitin is so menayin. How do you know? You have to give police as well. Tamalayim Shaitin Titin. It says Shaitin. Shayvtim lechol shevet v'shevet. I know that every tribe needs their own shevet leaders, judges. Tamalayim shayvtim lishvatecha. It says shayvtim v'shayvtim, and it says lechol sherecha, and then it says lechol lishvatecha. Place it. There's lechol to all your shvat. Shayvtim lechol shevet. I know you need police in every shevet. Tamalayim shayvtim lishvatecha. It says shayvtim the same thing. Lishvatecha. Shayvtim lechol shevet. I know break it down further. You need bezin in every single city. Tamalayim shayvtim. It says lish arecha to your sharecha, which means your gates to every city. Shaitim cholibin hainos police, same thing. Tamalam shaitim l'sharecha. Rabbi Yehuda says echad memuna kulam. Rabbi Yehuda says you have one person in charge of everybody else, and the Rashi learns it means the Sanhedrin Daf were in charge of everybody. So it sounds like Rashi is not really arguing. But Tracy says echad memuna kulam means that no, it doesn't mean that Sanhedrin on top of everyone else. It means that every bezin either means the Nasi is in charge of everybody, all the Batadinin, or it means the Av bezin. But then Taisa says interesting that every bezin had an Av bezin, but the Av bezin was not part of the bezin itself. He was there more than to supervise and make sure that everything is done correctly. That's Rabbi Yehuda. Then the Mega continues. As Bag said, the Shvatecha, the Shaftu Mitzvah, every Shevet has to have their own Shvatim. Mitzvah, the Shevet, Lodan, as Shifta. It's a Mitzvah for a Shevet to judge their own Shevet. There's an argument in the Rambam, Rabban, Machlek is whether if you have in one city two different Shvatim, do you have one Bezin for the entire city, or do you have to have a separate Bezin for each Shevet that's found in the city? Then the Gemara, the Mishnah continue that you don't make it a Dachas unless you have a Bezin of 71. And also, you don't make any dachas when it's on the border, and so on. So the word continues. How you know? But say says Isha, we had it before. But say says the Isha, who is the Isha? He, that man or that woman should be taken out, and taken out to the Sharecha. They should taken out to the court because they did a terrible abla between them, and you give them the skilla. So we say individual is Ish. We don't take out a multitude of people. Hey, no, you don't make it dachas on the border because it's dangerous. My time, but we bring it says it says in pasuk that mikir becham, that the whole idea of it says that you should. It says in the pasuk here that you should by in a dachas it says mikir becham from amongst you amarachmana only if in mikir becham, only if it's inside if it's in what do you call in middle of Eretz Yisrael somewhere, but not if it's not part of if it's on the border. We don't want it to happen. We don't want it to happen. Says the Gemara. Yeah. So further, it said not on the border, and then the Mishnah says you don't have three different cities also destroyed. So the Gemara said, why not? Why shouldn't three different cities be destroyed? It says Achas. It says Achas Morecha, one of your cities. If you found it near the dachas of one of your cities, then you should destroy them. It says Kisishma ba'Achas Orecha, and Hashem gave you the city. So Achas is one. Avalation Achas, or even time two. How do I know two? The same Orecha two. So Orecha plural. So therefore, even two cities. So what we learn? Achaz leishalish, one city, but not three. One city, but not three cities. Anywhere in Israel. Ain't the time. Maybe means there's not two cities as well. Cities in plural each time. Amor, Amani Mekayim Achaz, Achaz leishalish, one but not three. Zinin Amarab, sometimes Rabbi say, but Bezin Echad and Noisim. If they're all in one jurisdiction, we don't do. It's the lifetime of one of the 71 Sanhedrin. We don't use jurisdiction. We use 71 Sanhedrin. The lifetime of one Sanhedrin, you shouldn't have three. But if it's a different Sanhedrin years later, you can have again another case. So Zinin Amarab Bezin Echad Uday Noisim only if the lifetime of one particular Sanhedrin Habish Naim Bishloisha Botadin Oisim. You will do. But if it's 2, 3 different Batanino, it's 50 years later, 50 years later after that, you wouldn't do more in a Dachsen. The Zimnin but other times, you never have 3 cities in the history of Israel. Can be 3 cities in total of in a Dachsen. My time of the Rab, what's the Svarim? Karcha, because you will then make, remember, we destroy the entire city. You're going to have too many vacant places and you're inviting trouble. Only if it's in one region. But if it's 2 different places, 3 different places, far away from each other, it's not called a karcha, then it should be all right. And Rabbi Yechon says, ain't oisin mishum karcha. Rabbi Yechon says, no, you don't do it anywhere, because we don't want a karcha, we don't want a vacuum. Tani goes Rabbi Yechon, and we look at Rabbi Yechon, and in oisin, we don't make 3 separate cities in Israel. In a dachat, seems clear here that even though they're so far away from each other, we don't want 3. But even 2, if in the same area, ain't oisin. This is not like the Shlaki, because the Shlaki said if it's different areas, you can. Smuchel is fab, if it's in the border. Afila achas ain't oisin. One you don't do. By timer, Shema Yishmu Nachagayim will hear Yachribu es Eretz Yisrael. It will come and destroy Eretz Yisrael, and we don't want to have regions that are not popular. It says the Gemara, but take the way. What do you have to be a swara? Bring the pasuk in Mikir Becha Rachmana. It says Mikir Becha, and the law even Asfar. It says Mikir Becha, and we don't want from the border. The Gemara, Rab Shimon, this Rab Shimon, the daughter is time to call Rab Shimon, believe that you always try to find a reason for a pasuk, and even though the outcomes might be different as a result of that, because his din is talking about a mashkin that you don't take a, you shouldn't take a mashkin from a woman, so on and so forth. Even though the woman might be, but what about the woman is rich? Then you won't have to bring it back to her, so nobody's going to talk. What happens then? And Rav Shimon gives a reason that it will be chayshah. But if there's no, according to pasuk, it makes no difference what kind of borrower that woman is. You shouldn't take the mashkin and then bring it back to her. But Shimon Darsh time to crow. So here we also say we Darsh time to crow. Say the reason is because we don't want a vacuum. Okay, we'll stop here. We'll do tomorrow in Mitzvah Hashem.